Hello, and sorry for the little delay. Now we begin with the IELTS lesson. Every week we continue looking at the IELTS exam and trying to prepare for this exam. It's very interesting, obviously, for people preparing for the test, but I think it's a very good exercise anyway for other people who are learning English. So today we look at a text and it's a reading exercise. So there will be lots of vocabulary, there will be lots of expressions, there will be lots of grammar from the text, and I think this is an excellent way for everybody to learn some English during this lesson. As I said, also it's very good for people preparing for the exam. So hopefully this lesson will help, and thank you for watching live and thank you for watching recorded as well. If you have a comment, if you have a question, please leave your comment and question in the Facebook comment section, and I will be able to respond to your question during the lesson, or more probably after the lesson I can answer any questions that you have. So let's begin. This exam is very interesting. There's two types of IELTS exam. The first one is an academic exam, and that's typical for entering university or going for a course like in college. And the second one is a general IELTS exam, which is maybe more for professional and of course immigration. I don't know exactly which one is more appropriate for immigration and professional, but basically there's two different types of exams that you need to consider before you select your correct option. But today we look at the academic reading, and there's two types of reading. There's academic reading and general reading, and basically the speaking exam is the same. The speaking is the same in academic and general, and the listening is the same in speaking and academic. The writing is different and the reading is different as well in the two. Okay. So if you want to contact me on social media, I have all the channels here, and basically you can connect on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, and WhatsApp as well. If you have any wish or desire to connect on social media, that is all the information, and hopefully you can join on the platforms. Okay, also everything is free. So here you can see my timetable. I'll just try to get my timetable here. Yes, okay. So this is my schedule and my timetable for the week. Today we are at section for IELTS, and later today we have one more lesson, and this is dedicated to correcting people's speaking. So you are welcome to submit some speaking when you want, and I can correct your speaking during this particular lesson. Today I think I use just material from YouTube to analyze people's correcting speaking, and then tomorrow we have another schedule as well, probably different to this schedule, maybe earlier. So that is my timetable, and generally that's the plan for the week. Everything is free, everything is for the public, but at the moment I'm contacting some businesses and schools and companies in the educational field who might want to support my project and to finance my project to cover my costs. And basically I can advertise your company during this lesson, and I can put the information here, and that's a good way for you to promote your business as well. So hopefully you might have an interest in this, and you can contact me if you want to do that. Subtitles. If you want to select subtitles during this video, it's a very good idea because there will be a lot of vocabulary, and the option to have subtitles is fantastic. So I recommend that you select the subtitles option, and that will be a very good way to see the vocabulary that I am using during this lesson. So it's an extra aid and an extra assistance as well. That might be very interesting. Okay, let's begin. Here you can see the website, and basically it's the IELTS official website, and on the website you have a section for people taking the test, and also in that section you have sample test questions, and here you can see a lot of very good material available for the different parts of the exam. And specifically here are the different parts. As I said, the listening is the same in the academic exam, and the listening is the same in the general IELTS exam. The speaking is the same in the academic exam, and the speaking is the same in the general training IELTS exam. However, the reading is different. You have an academic reading section and you have a general training reading section. So the style of the questions are different. And also in the writing, you have an academic writing question. And in the other exam, you have a general training writing question. And the style and the structures are a little different for those questions. So that's important. And in the next weeks, hopefully I can explain to you different exercises from the listening, reading, speaking and writing. But today we continue our focus on the academic reading. So in this section already, in the last weeks, we have completed 1, 2, 3, 4 different exercises. And today we move to academic reading for matching headings. This is tricky and it's full of questions and full of a text that's full of vocabulary. So I have selected this option and here you can see the option. And this is the sample reading question. Okay, and the name is the sample academic reading matching headings. So let's read. And first you can see the options. Here are the list of headings. And we must match this one of these options with the particular paragraph. Okay, so you have section A, section B, section C, D and E. And here we have section A. We have section B, so it's quite long, full of text, section C and section D, E. And we must match the correct section with the answer. So let's read the instructions clearly first, because that's a very important thing. Always, it's a good habit to read the full question first. This is an extract from a part 2 text about the physics of traffic behavior. So unfortunately, the topic is very, very particular. It's a very specific topic, and this might be boring for some people and it might be very interesting for other people, but that is part of the exam. We must keep that in mind, that there's very different parts and different topics involved in every part of the exam. So today we speak about traffic and the physics of traffic behavior, so very specific. So it's from the Atlantic Media Company, published in the Atlantic magazine. Therefore, a very good way to prepare for these tests is to read magazines, to read newspapers, to read books, to read journals, and to read lots of different locations and different sources of material. And for this strategy, it should be a very good way to improve and to prepare for this type of exam. It will improve your vocabulary, it will improve your grammar, but also it will give you a bit of confidence when you enter the exam as well. Questions 1 to 4. Reading the passage 1 has 5 sections. So reading passage 1 has 5 different sections, A to E. We have seen at the bottom, paragraph A, B, C, D, E. It's necessary to choose the correct heading for each from the list of the headings below. Okay, and I think it's only possible one option, one heading per paragraph, I think. It does not say. Normally we are told what is the correct amount. So for example, here we have 8 options. We have 8 possible headings and we have option A, B, C, D, E. We've only 5 sections. So only 5 sections and 8 options. So I am assuming there is 3 options not necessary. So we must keep that in mind as well. So let's read just very quickly the different lists of headings. And here you can see dramatic effects can result from small changes in traffic, just as in nature. So in nature, there's obviously dramatic effects from a small change, but in traffic, a small change has a big effect as well. And that's very important. The next sentence, how a maths experiment actually, in fact, reduced traffic congestion. So the heading is "A Mathematics Experiment Really Reduced the Congestion of Traffic." That might be the topic of one paragraph. The third option, how a concept from one field of study was applied in another. So one concept from a different academic subject was used in a different field. A lack of investment in driver training. Lack means a shortage, insufficient. So insufficient investment, the money you invest, and this is the noun in driver training. So not enough money put into driving. Next option, areas of doubt and disagreement between experts. So maybe the paragraph expresses the disagreement and the doubt between the experts. Next, how different countries have managed traffic congestion. Finally, penultimately, the impact of driver behavior on traffic speed. Very interesting. So how speed has been affected by the driver behavior. And finally, a proposal to take control away from the driver. So they are the options. It's difficult to remember all the options when we are reading the text, but it's also important to keep in mind all of these options. It's necessary to understand the headings very clearly. Okay, let's continue and let's begin with paragraph A. So in this text, I think we will learn a lot of vocabulary and a lot of expressions from this text, and I'm just trying to find the perfect size so you can see it. So let's begin. Some years ago, when several theoretical physicists, principally Dirk Helbing and Boris Kerner, give me one moment because my dog is wanting to go into the house. So give me one moment and I return. But this is the opportunity for you to read the text, and I return in one moment. 1 second, sorry. Okay. Now, sorry about that. Sorry, so hopefully you had the chance maybe to read this paragraph. And sometimes the dog needs to come in, so that is necessary to help him, I suppose. Okay, so let's look at the vocabulary and let me try to help with the vocabulary from this particular paragraph. Principally, Dirk Helbing and Boris Kerner of Stuttgart, Germany, began publishing papers on traffic flow in publications normally read by traffic engineers. They were clearly working outside their usual sphere of investigation. They had noticed that if they simulated the movement of vehicles on a highway using the equations that describe how the molecules of a gas move, some very strange results emerged. Of course, vehicles do not behave exactly like gas molecules. For example, drivers try to avoid collisions by slowing down when they get too near another vehicle, whereas Gas molecules have no such concern. However, the physicists modified the equations to take the differences into account, and the overall description of traffic as a flowing gas has proved to be a very good one. The moving gas model of traffic reproduces many phenomena seen in real-world traffic. So already I am thinking about one option, and one of the options was the idea in a different field of study, a different subject with a different field, and used in the traffic management system. If you remember one of the headings, that's the option I'm thinking about at the moment. But let's continue. The strangest thing that came out of these equations, however, was the implication that congestion can arise completely spontaneously. No external causes are necessary. Vehicles can be flowing freely along at a density still well below what the road can handle, and then suddenly gel into a slow moving ooze. So very difficult vocabulary. Under the right conditions, a brief and local fluctuation in speed or the distance between vehicles is all it takes to trigger a system-wide breakdown that persists for hours. In fact, the physicists' analysis suggested such spontaneous breakdowns in traffic flow probably occur quite frequently on highways, and that is paragraph A. For me, it's important to read quickly because our job is to identify the answer. Number one, your job is to identify the answer and not to understand everything. So first, we must try to find the answer. Of course, there is a lot of vocabulary here that is very difficult, and I want to explain a lot of the vocabulary, but first it's a good idea just to read quickly this text. So from the headings above, do you remember the options? Dramatic effects can result from small changes in traffic. How a maths experiment. So what do you think might be the correct answer immediately, instinctively? For me, as I said, immediately I think of this option. Immediately I think strongly about this option. That's my opinion. I don't know what you think. Excuse me. So maybe with your pen you can take a note and suggest what might be the possible answer. But for me, I think A is option 3. At the moment, that is my best idea, but I could be wrong. So let's continue to option B, paragraph B. And again, first we read the text just to have a good idea and to try to find the answer before we analyze the vocabulary. So let's read very quickly here. I'll try to make this a little bit bigger, the right size, so everybody can see perfectly. Sorry. Maybe I'll use this button as well. Yeah, okay, perfect. That's much better. Okay, let's begin paragraph B. Though a decidedly unsettling discovery, this showed striking similarities to the phenomena popularized as chaos theory. This theory has arisen from the understanding that in any complex interacting system which is made of many parts, each part affects the others. Consequently, tiny variations in one part of a complex system can grow in huge but unpredictable ways. This type of dramatic change from one state to another is similar to what happens when a chemical substance changes from a vapor to a liquid. It often happens that water in a cloud remains as a gas even after its temperature and density have reached the point where it could condense into water droplets. However, if the vapor encounters a solid surface, even something as small as a speck of dust, condensation can take place and the transition from vapor to liquid finally occurs. Helbing and Kerner see traffic as a complex interacting system. They found that a small fluctuation in traffic density can act as the speck of dust, causing a sudden change from freely moving traffic to synchronized traffic. When vehicles in all lanes abruptly slow down and start moving at the same speed, making passing impossible. Tricky, definitely tricky, because there's a lot of information and a lot to understand in that paragraph. But in the exam, you don't have a lot of time. So the job now is to try and find the correct heading for this particular paragraph from your instinct. So let's read the options again and maybe guess what might be the best option here. Dramatic effects can result from small changes in traffic, just like nature. Maybe, but I didn't see anything related to nature. How a mathematics experiment actually reduced traffic congestion. I didn't see anything related to mathematics. How a concept from one, I think already we have selected this, even though it looks familiar. A lack of investment in driver training. I don't see any connection. Areas of doubt and disagreement between experts. Well, there's two experts. Do they disagree? I cannot remember. Different countries dealt with traffic congestion. No comparison with different countries. The impact of driver behavior on speed. So this is very difficult, and personally for me, always I have great difficulty in the reading exercises. Even though I'm a native English speaker, I still have big problems finding the answers in the reading questions. So I'm not sure. Let me check again the paragraph B and see what we can find. Okay, so this is a theory. I'm just taking a moment to read it. So maybe something about a small change, like the dust having a big impact, and there is an option here about that. Yes, I think definitely it's the small change can have a big impact. So let's select option 1 because that seems to be the best option for this paragraph. However, I don't see anything particularly about nature, but let's continue and let's select option 1. Okay, C. Let's check option C. Sorry for that. I want to keep it small like the other letter, and that's perfect. Okay, so paragraph C, and again you can look quickly at the options. Concept from one fit. Okay, lack of investment, areas of doubt or disagreement between experts, traffic congestion, different countries, impact on traffic speed and behavior of the driver, or a proposal to take control away. So they are all the options, and let's look at paragraph C. A, B, C. Okay, let's read quickly again. The physicists have challenged proposals to set a maximum capacity for vehicles on highways. They argue that it may not be enough to simply limit the rate at which vehicles are allowed to enter a highway. Rather, it may be necessary to time each vehicle's entry onto a highway precisely to coincide with temporary drop in density of vehicles along the road. The aim of doing this would be to smooth out any possible fluctuations in the road congestion that can trigger a change in traffic behavior and result in congestion. So here we speak about traffic behavior. They further suggest that preventing breakdowns in the flow of traffic could ultimately require implementing the radical idea that has been suggested from time to time, directly regulating the speed and spacing of individual cars along a highway with central computers and sensors that communicate with each other's cars' engines and brake controls. So this is the second part. It's a bit difficult. I'm going to read again. They further suggest that preventing breakdowns in the flow of traffic could ultimately require implementing the radical idea that has been suggested from time to time, directly regulating the speed and spacing of individual cars along a highway with okay. So electronics, computers to control the speed, and also the first part is that the control of the cars on the highway, the control of the entry. That's my interpretation more or less of that paragraph. They want to control the entry, the number of cars that enter the highway, depending on the cars on the highway. Very, very complicated, I think, in my opinion, for me anyway. So let's look at the options here. And maths experiment, not really. Lack of investment, no. Doubts and disagreement, not really. Different countries, no. This one, I think, definitely. The driver, well, no, sorry, I think it's probably the last one. A proposal to take control away from the driver. So they take control away from the driver and they control, the computers control, the sensors control the system of the highway. So for me, that seems to be the most appropriate connection. So I'm going to suggest section C is connected to 8. And of course, I could be wrong. And we continue to paragraph D. So that was A, B, C, and D. Okay, however, research into traffic control is generally centered in civil engineering departments, and here the theories of physicists have been greeted with some skepticism. Okay, so first we have civil engineers, which is a topic to study, and physicists, so two very different topics of study. Skepticism. Civil engineers favor a practical approach to problems and believe traffic congestion is a result of poor road construction, 2 lanes becoming 1, or dangerous curves, which constricts the flow of traffic. Engineers questioned how well the physicists' theoretical results relate to traffic in the real world. Indeed, some engineering researchers questioned whether elaborate chaos theory interpretations are needed at all, since at least some of the traffic phenomena the physicists' theories predicted seemed to be similar to observations that had been appearing in traffic engineering literature under other names for years, observations which had straightforward cause and effect. An explanation. So my interpretation of this paragraph is that engineers, civil engineers, are having a discussion with physicists. So they disagree a lot. The physicists have different opinions with the civil engineers, and I think that connects very well with one of the questions that we have. And the questions we have at the top are here, and I think it's an area of doubt and disagreement between the experts, because the expert is in civil engineering and the expert is also in physics. So for me, that seems to be the strongest connection, and I'm going to suggest V is this paragraph. Okay, next we move to section E, and this is the last paragraph, thankfully, because this is very difficult always. And then I will show you some vocabulary from the paragraphs. E. James Bank, a professor of civil and environment engineering at San Diego State University in the US, suggested that a sudden slowdown in traffic may have less to do with chaos theory than with driver psychology. As traffic gets heavier and the passing lane gets more crowded, aggressive drivers move to other lanes to try to pass, which also tends to even out the speed between lanes. He also felt that another leveling force is that when a driver in a fast lane brakes a little to maintain a safe distance between vehicles, the shock wave travels back much more rapidly than it would in the other slower lanes, because each following car has to react more quickly. Consequently, as a road becomes congested, the faster moving traffic is the first to slow down. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. And my interpretation of this is one theory where the man is suggesting that the fast cars and the aggressive drivers move into the fast lane, and when the fast cars want to stop, this has a big impact on that lane. So I don't know if we can find the correct answer here, but let's check. Dramatic effects. Okay, how a maths experiment. No, I didn't see anything connected to a mathematics experiment. A lack of investment in driving. No. Different countries. No. I think clearly it's option 7. The impact of driver behavior on traffic speed. So the behavior of the driver is more important. If the driver is very aggressive, that will have a big impact on the velocity and the speed in the car. So I'm going to suggest E is 7. And of course, I could be wrong. So they would be my final answers, and I'm pretty happy with my answers. I think I'm more or less happy with all of them. And let's check the answers at the bottom of the page. Okay, here we have answers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so they haven't given the numbers. Oh, okay, so yes, I think everything is correct. I'm reading and I'm remembering, so I just have to remember everything, and I think everything is correct. I'm almost sure that everything is correct, and you hopefully think the same, just because you need to remember the options. So option 1 is how a concept from one field of study was applied in another. Option 2, a proposal to take control away from the driver and give to the computers and the sensors. Option 3 was an area of doubt between the experts, the civil engineers and the physicists. And option 4, the impact of driver behavior on traffic speed, the aggressive drivers. So for me, that seems to be absolutely clear and perfect and all correct. So let's finish that exercise. Sorry, that's first part completed. Now I want to teach you some of the important vocabulary, teach or show you some of the important vocabulary from that paragraph, because we have some very, very interesting vocabulary. Again, if you have a question, if you have a comment, please leave your comment in the chat, and I can answer your questions at the end of the lesson, and you can communicate with each other, of course, as well. Several basically means a lot or many. I think this text is quite difficult, and I think it's intermediate or advanced, and I find this a difficult text to do. Okay, began obviously is the verb to begin in the past irregular. Begin, began, begun. You publish a paper, you produce a paper, you make a paper, and you publish a paper. The traffic flow, the velocity and the flow of traffic. Working outside the usual sphere. So normally you work in a field of study, an area of study, or a sphere of study. And if you are in a sphere of study, this is your area and your department of study. Okay, so that's the concept here as well. I'm looking for the next important word. Again, the verb to emerge is something to appear. If something emerges, it means to appear, and that's quite important as well. Strange obviously has the significance unusual, peculiar, odd. So we have good vocabulary for strange, peculiar, odd. Try to avoid. You obviously avoid a collision, avoid a crash by slowing down, reducing the velocity, slowing down when they get too near, excessively near another vehicle. Whereas has the significance, however, whereas gas molecules have no such concern. They don't have the same worry. They don't have the same stress. However, the physicists modified, changed the equations to take the difference into account. So this is the structure. To take into account means to consider. If you take something into account, you consider something. The overall description, the description in total of traffic as a flowing gas has proved to be a very good one. The moving gas model of traffic reproduces many phenomena. I think that's plural. A phenomenon is singular and plural is phenomena seen in real traffic. Okay, we continue to the next paragraph to identify the most important vocabulary from this. The strangest, so this is the superlative that came out. This is very important. So when you have a meeting, something comes out of the meeting, like the result. And sometimes, of course, we say the outcome, and the outcome has the same significance as the result. Okay, so this is the product of the equation, something that came from the equation. Congestion can arise, and this means to appear, like emerge. It's a synonym to emerge or appear. So congestion can happen can occur, can appear, can emerge, can arise, very good quality, spontaneously. So the pronunciation is very important. The adjective is spontaneous, the person is very spontaneous, but the adverb is spontaneously. So very important vocabulary. Flow freely means to move completely freely. Density means there's a lot of cars in that particular area. It's very dense. The adjective is dense and the substantive is density. What the road can handle. So the verb to handle means to manage. If you handle the situation, you manage the situation. You handle the traffic, you manage the traffic. You handle the attention, you manage the attention. So it's a very important verb to handle, to control, to manage. Suddenly gel. This is very interesting as well. The verb in English to gel. First, maybe for your hair, you put gel in your hair. It's like a liquid specifically for your hair to design and shape your hair. However, there is a verb in English to gel, and it means this, like to fuse or to bond. So in English we have a few different verbs: to gel, to fuse, and to bond. It means to come together, and this is exactly the same. Suddenly gel or move into a slow moving ooze. This is very, very difficult vocabulary, and it's like a liquid. It's a word to describe the flow. If the tree is oozing the sap, very, very difficult vocabulary, but sometimes the liquid that comes from the tree is called sap, and sometimes it oozes. If you cut your finger or you cut your body, the blood will ooze, and it means to flow very quickly. It's also possible in English to ooze confidence. And if you ooze confidence, this means that you are flowing in confidence. You're moving very, very, your confidence is flowing very well. So you're oozing in confidence. You have a huge amount of confidence. You're oozing in confidence. So it's a very interesting word. Of course, booze is completely different. Booze is another word for alcohol, very informal word for alcohol. So they're very different. And here, the ooze expresses and describes the traffic, the flow of the traffic. Under the right conditions, a brief means very short. A brief meeting, a brief conversation, a short meeting and a short conversation. Fluctuation, obviously up and down, it's a fluctuation. To trigger, very, very important, because you have the pistol and the trigger is this part of the pistol that you pull. You pull the trigger and there's an explosion and you shoot. So this is the pistol and the trigger. So this is very frequent in English, and it means to cause something to happen. So something triggered your reaction, something caused your reaction. Very, very important vocabulary. Breakdown is when something collapses. If the computer breaks down, the computer collapses. If the system breaks down, the system collapses. If the car breaks down, the car collapses and does not function. That persists for hours, continues and continues and continues for a long time. In fact, the physicists' analysis suggested such spontaneous breakdowns in traffic flow probably happen frequently on highways. Okay, we continue for the next section for vocabulary. Any questions, any comments, please put your question in the Facebook chat and I can check your comments later after the lesson. Unsettling, very, very important, because the verb is to settle and the significance is to be calm. Okay, to settle a disagreement is to make calm the disagreement. To settle a bill, to settle your stomach. We have a lot of expressions here, and the first one is related to an argument or a fight. If you have a fight or an argument and you want to settle the disagreement, you want to solve the disagreement and you want to fix and basically agree and solve the disagreement. This is the significance of to settle a disagreement, to settle an argument, to settle a fight. A bet. You can settle a bet as well, like a gamble, and you place the money and you need to complete the offer. So you need the company to pay you because you win, and that's to finish, to settle the bet. Settle a bill in the restaurant. You have a high bill and the restaurant want you to pay the bill, so they are anxious and you need to settle the bill. To settle your stomach, when your stomach is feeling very uncomfortable and very crazy, you need to take some medicine to settle your bill, settle your stomach. Okay, so here is the negative. It's unsettling, which means very chaotic. So it's a discovery that makes it very uncomfortable. Uncomfortable discovery. Striking similarities means very dramatic and very obvious similarities. If the similarity is striking, it's very amazing and very distinct and very obvious. So really good vocabulary. Okay, arisen again means to appear. And tiny has the significance very, very small. Tiny variations, really small. Grow obviously is to progress or develop. Huge is the opposite to tiny. Tiny and huge, very, very big, unpredictable ways. Okay. And then I just try to identify the key vocabulary in the next. Remain, stay, it continues, it stays as a gas. Okay. Reach the point, arrive to the point. And a droplet is a little piece of water. Obviously, we typically say a drop of water, a drop of milk, but a droplet is the specific word to describe the small shape or the small bubble-like shape of water. It's a droplet. And again, encounter is to meet or to find. If you encounter a person, you find or you meet that person. And a speck is very, very interesting vocabulary. A speck is a very, very small particle. For example, a speck of dirt is a little small piece, a small particle of dirt. It's a speck of dirt. So it's very, very good vocabulary. One little speck, one little small, tiny particle. And here it's a speck of dust. So when you clean, you have a speck of dust, a little piece of dust. Condensation can take place. Condensation is the process when the vapor changes to water. And this can take place. The significance of the phrasal verb to take place means to happen. It can take place, it can happen, it can occur. That's the significance of take place. And the transition from to, it's very typical with the prepositions from to. Transition from this to this. Okay. Helping a Kerner see, and then I just tried to, fluctuation is the verb to fluctuate, to go up and down, and the substantive is fluctuation, but the verb is to fluctuate. The price can fluctuate, the temperature can fluctuate, and other things can fluctuate as well. But here it's the noun fluctuation. Can act as, behave as a speck of dust, causing a sudden change, a very quick, very rapid change. Okay. Abruptly, fantastic. The adjective is abrupt. If you are very abrupt, you're very direct, you're very quick, and maybe a little rude. But in relation to traffic, if traffic abruptly slows down, it dramatically, very quickly slows down. Very, very dramatic. Okay. I think that's most of the vocabulary for today. I think that's probably enough. Maybe very quickly in the next paragraph, I will just identify the key words. To set is to fix, to set the capacity, to set the limit, to fix the limit. And rather has the significance instead. Normally it's rather than, but it is possible just rather, and the significance is instead. Okay, and to coincide is very difficult. When two things happen at the same time by coincidence, in Espanol it's casualidad. So a coincidence is the verb to coincide, and the pronunciation is very important, to coincide. So my party coincides with your party. It's casualidad in Espanol. It's a coincidence that my party is the same time as your party. It's fortunate in a way. So the verb is to coincide. Drop, a drop in temperature, a drop in price, a drop in density, a reduction. Okay. The aim, the target, the focus, the aim, the objective, the target, the focus. To smooth out is very, very good quality English. The verb is to smooth, and this means to make something comfortable, to make something easy and calm. For example, your shirt, if you smooth, it's like to iron. In English, we have the verb to iron. In Espanol, planchar. So to smooth out is very, very similar. The adjective is smooth. For example, the skin is very smooth, or your behavior is very smooth, very calm as well. The river or the sea is very smooth, very calm. So to smooth out means to make the situation very calm, like the verb to settle. And the fluctuation, so you have a fluctuation and you want to smooth out the fluctuation in this case. Trigger a change, this means to cause a change or to create the change in traffic behavior. Okay, they further suggest, they suggest more. That's preventing, stopping a breakdown could require implementation. Okay. Spacing, the separation, the spacing of cars, the separation of the cars. And that's it. Okay, next. Obviously, a break is different from a break. The spelling is very, very different. This is important. The verb is to break, and the other verb is to break. So we have two completely different verbs, but very important and almost the same in pronunciation. The first verb is when you damage something, you break something, and the second one is in the car, the accelerator and the brake. So the pronunciation is the same, but the significance is very different. Okay, research, study, investigation. Okay, and greeted, this means have been welcomed, have been accepted, have been greeted with skepticism. If you are a skeptic, this means you have a lot of doubts. You are very uncertain and very unsure. If you are a skeptic, the adjective is skeptical, and the noun is skepticism. When you have a lot of doubts, you have a lot of uncertainty, you have a lot of skepticism, but the person is a skeptic and the adjective is skeptical. Okay. A practical approach. Approach is a mentality, an attitude, a practical attitude, a practical approach to problems. Okay. Constrict is very similar to restrict or to prevent the flow of traffic. It limits the flow of traffic. It constricts. Very difficult. Okay, and then finally, indeed is like in fact. The verb to question, you ask a question, but it's also typical just the verb to question. Whether has the significance if. They are needed at all, absolutely. If they are really needed. At least, very important combination. At least in Espanol, al menos. Okay, again, phenomena is plural. Okay, and that's it. So finally, the last paragraph. This is very difficult to have to do with. This means association. You don't want to have anything to do with this place. So you don't want to have any association, any connection with this place. Gets is become. The traffic becomes bigger and heavier and heavier. It becomes heavier. And again, the lane becomes more crowded, more congested. To even out is very important as well, because the number is even. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, they are even numbers, and the odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So to even out means to have an equal level in the end. So to even out means to have balance. It's almost the same as the verb to balance. He also felt, this is the verb to feel, your emotions in the past felt. And the shock wave. A shock wave is when something is a very big impact on you. It's a shock wave. It's a dramatic effect. And that's it. Okay, very, very good. Excellent. So that's a very good lesson today. Number 1, to practice the questions and to try to find the answers. But number 2, to look at the vocabulary and to look at the very important expressions from the text. So this one in particular, this exercise in particular today, I think was very difficult. More difficult compared to the other exercises we have done previously. And if you remember, already we have done matching features, we have done table completion, we have done flowchart completion, identifying information, and today we are doing matching headings. But the previous 4, I think were easier. Today's exercise, I think, was more difficult. Definitely more difficult, but very interesting. So obviously we have a lot more options to do, and I recommend for yourself to try to do these exercises to continue preparing yourself. But this video, my video, is to try to give you a guide and a little support to try and do some of these exercises as well. So it is a good idea for you to do the exercises yourself, but my idea is to be a little support and to help you a little. Okay, I think that's everything for today. I hope you can leave your comment and you can leave your message in the chat, and that's a very good way to interact. And again, thank you so much. If you want to follow my schedule, this is my schedule for this week. So today we're at the section of IELTS lesson. In 30 minutes, I will give a lesson correcting speaking, and that will be interesting. I encourage you to send some speaking. I can correct your speaking for free during this lesson, but today I'm using material, I think, from YouTube. And tomorrow we continue with grammar in the morning, but the time, I think, will be different. It'll be earlier tomorrow morning, I think, and you can hopefully find that on the Facebook page as well. Everything is free and everything is for the public. Okay, so it's completely free and very, very good project, but you can support me if you want. You can make a subscription and you can make a donation through the bank or through PayPal as well, and this will help me. Also, at the moment, I am contacting companies, I am contacting businesses to support my project, and in return, I can advertise your company here for this price, but it's flexible, and I'm really looking for companies and businesses in relation to education who might want to support this project and to finance my project. I think it's a very good project. Everything is for free. I am a bit limited in terms of conversation classes, so this is the best I can do, and hopefully it will be attractive to a lot of people as well. Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much. And finally, if you want to contact me on social media, you can connect on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, and WhatsApp as well. If you have any questions, any comments, you can contact me on any of those channels. So thank you so much. I hope that you have a good day and have a very good Friday. And I hope to see you soon in some of my lessons. And again, please leave your comment to interact. Thank you. Have a great day and hopefully talk to you soon. Bye bye.